Okay, well, I'll see if this works. I have no idea if it will or not. I need to focus, and I'm having trouble focusing on this, even though it should be interesting. But I'll try it this way, one at a time. Introduction: Religion and Life. The relation of religion to life is a topic that could be explored in many different ways, but this chapter will confine itself to two: the relation of religion to conduct, and and the question of the meaning of life. The relation of religion to conduct, and the question of the meaning of life. Religion to conduct, and the question of the meaning of life. Okay, I think I got it. Ugh. If asked to describe why they believe in God, most followers of a theistic religion could say that their religion offers salvation, or makes them a better person, or adds meaning to their life that they couldn't have found without it. All of these answers center on the claim that belief in God or some transcendent reality adds a sense of meaning and purpose to life that otherwise would not be present. Without such meaning, life would appear to be aimless and without any goal or significance. Paul Tillich's definition of faith as ultimate concern. Okay, Tillich, faith is ultimate concern. Okay, that's his thing. Is another way of saying much the same thing. A faith commitment, whatever it may be, is the centering act that gives unity and focus to one's personality. Faith commitment is a centering act. Say, it doesn't jive with me, but okay. Faith commitment is the centering act that gives unity and focus to one's personality. That's Paul Tillich. Okay. Those that argue that one need not focus one's life on a transcendent reality to have a meaningful life point out the numerous thought systems of antiquity that provided a coherent framework for living, yet lacked any transcendent allegiances. Whatever, whether it be the generation of a code of ethical conduct or an explanation of the human place in the overall scheme of things, such systems did not appeal to a transcendent reality to deal with those issues. Stoicism, Epicureanism, and closer to our time, utilitarianism were all developed independently of a religious framework. Okay, so I should remember Stoicism, Epicureanism, utilitarianism, independent of religious framework. Okay, knowing what to remember is going to be tricky. Religion and morality. Yep. Those who argue that religious faith provides the only legitimate means for life would also be sympathetic to the view that religion gives guidance for the living of life. In short, for these persons, there is an intimate connection between religion and ethics. I see. What the most extreme way of putting this point would be to say that there can be no ethical thinking separate from or independent of religion. This claim can be shown to be false on both historical and philosophical grounds. As has already been noted, the history of philosophy presents us with numerous ethical systems that are not tied with any religious tradition. The Nicomachean Ethics of Aristotle, for example, espouses many principles of conduct that most Jewish and Christian moralists would find generally acceptable, yet it is an ethical system completely divorced from religion in the conventional sense. Indeed, Aristotle's metaphysical views include no personal God, in either a Christian or a Jewish sense. Yet many of his ethical principles are compatible with both of these religions. As a philosophical inquiry, ethics must be autonomous from religion, else it ceases to be a philosophical inquiry and becomes theology instead. Aha! Of course, one might choose to argue that no genuine ethical insight can be gained apart from religion, but this would be to take a philosophical position that would require some kind of supporting argument. If successful, such an argument would entail the reduction of ethics to religion. That many ethical systems claim autonomy from religion shows that this claim is at least subject to dispute. Yeah. Whereas the first erroneous claim is that there can be no morality without religion, the second erroneous claim is that there can be no religion without morality. So hold up. No morality without religion, no religion without morality. Okay. Since religion necessarily has moral content. So this is an erroneous claim. Okay. Again, there is solid historical evidence against this view. Many early religions had no moral concern at all. The ancient Greek religions, for example, were concerned only with placating the gods and thereby avoiding divine wrath. Professor Noel Smith puts it well when he says, in none of the earliest cultures were the gods endowed with high moral attributes, nor were they thought to concern themselves much with the behavior of human beings, as long as the latter performed their religious duties punctiliously. Religion seems to have been concerned with the averting of disasters and with salvation in the life after death, and both were achieved by means of ritual. Okay, that was, who was that guy? Professor Noel Smith. Okay, I hope I don't have to remember you. Probably will. Yep. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. Although religion and ethics can be separate areas of concern, one reason we tend to see them as interrelated is because of their close connection in both Judaism and Christianity. In both traditions, moral demands for upright living are at the heart of religious obligation. The Hebrew prophets of the 8th century BCE emphasized in a highly developed way the moral implications of faith in the living God. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? Micah 6:8. The New Testament also echoes this. We love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he does not love his brother who has seen, cannot love whom he has seen, cannot love God whom he has not seen. Even religions with no personal God, such as Buddhism and Confucianism, place a priority on ethics, so much so that Confucianism is virtually an ethical system. But not all religions can claim the higher degree of ethical content that these religions have. Ugh, okay. All right. I think we're going to belabor this point, but let's see. There seems then to be grounds for believing in the independence of morality from religion. Although the preponderance of the philosophical tradition is on the side of the autonomy of ethics, there is wide disagreement about the source of the knowledge of ethics. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Some philosophical traditions argue for the existence of a special moral sense. Special moral sense. What, organ in your head? Okay. Others find the source of ethics to be in the power of reason. Philosophers also disagree on whether the rightness of an action is a function of the motives of the agent or the consequences of the action. Is the rightness of an action a function of the motives? It's righteous because of the motives. Okay. Yeah. Or the consequences of the action. So, intent or consequence, before or after. Okay. It is an intriguing characteristic of these philosophical debates that although philosophers of different schools have often agreed on what is right, they do not always agree on why it is right. Justified paragraph. I hope it is justified. Is this really streaming? Yeah, it's apparently streaming. I have a chat window someplace. I don't know if anybody's on it. Let's see. Who knows? Okay, next one. This doesn't matter. I'm reading this out loud to keep me honest. Oh, dear Lord. One ethical system that has a profound effect on Christian moral philosophy was that of the Stoics. Thank you, Stoics. Believing that rational beings can discover the principles of right action through the power of reason, they claimed that the correct conduct is that which conforms to the lex naturale, or something, the natural law. The view that there is a natural law independent of individual whim and fancy had a profound effect on the development of Roman civil law, which directly influenced the formation of the Western legal system. Yeah, Roman to Western, okay. Natural law also provided a metaphysical foundation for ethics through much of the Middle Ages. Christian philosophers of the Middle Ages viewed the natural law as also being the law of God. Natural law, law of God, Middle Ages, okay. That we are aware of the natural law provided medieval Christian philosophers with evidence for the existence of God. Okay. So natural law is a given, I see. I see. Okay. But when they explored further the question of the status of the natural law, they confronted a dilemma. Is the natural law our duty merely because God says it is? Or does God give us rational insight into the natural law because it is good in itself? What? What? Try this again. Is the natural law our duty merely because God says it is? God says it is. Or does God give us rational insight into the natural law? So, is rational insight good in itself? Is rational insight good in itself? Oh, well, this is the same. Yeah, there was another situation a lot like this one. Okay, I don't remember what it's called. If we can say something is our duty merely because God commanded it, and God could have commanded the exact opposite, which would likewise have been good, this makes morality conventional and arbitrary. But we say that goodness is independent of God. This would seem to make God subservient to an independent morality, which would be in conflict with the divine attributes of omniscience and omnipotence. The solution to the dilemma was to suggest a third alternative. It is God's nature to be good, therefore God's will only the good for us. Since God cannot act contrary to God's nature, this view of God as ultimate in reality and truth and in goodness established an unbreakable connection between religion and morality in the minds of the philosophers of the Middle Ages. Okay. So the ultimate goodness of God. Okay. However, by the 18th century, a different mood in ethics arose. Too many wars had been fought in the name of God, for the philosophers to be content to allow morality to be defined by religious zealots. Thinkers looked for a rational basis, no philosopher better represented than Kant. Kant argues that the view that an action is morally significant only if it is done for the sake of duty. Compulsion, fear of punishment, the command of an authority, even concern for desirable consequences would diminish the moral significance of an act. The only reason for ascribing moral worth to an action was that it was to be done by a person of goodwill out of a sense of duty. So, it's moral to stick to your duty of your own free will. Yeah, that makes it moral. At one level, we would probably want to agree with Kant. If someone refuses to tell a lie because of the fear of punishment, that person is acting out, not out of a sense of duty to tell the truth, but out of fear of consequences. In contrast, if someone tells the truth, even though the consequences might be unpleasant, there is moral significance to this action than there would be the person were telling the truth only out of a fear of punishment. Ah, yeah, okay, I get it. Not only does Kant think that ethics was autonomous, but he goes further, suggesting that religion is subordinate to ethics. So ethics is first, religion is second. True religion to Kant is the pecan. I like pecans. Is the recognition that all duties are divine commands. The implication of Kant's view is that we should judge the claims of religion by the principles of morality and be willing to analyze ethical problems independently of religious presuppositions and commitments. He split off ethics from religion. We will explore several reactions to these issues in the readings in this chapter. In the first, William Paley, a voice from the 18th century, gives expression to the point of view that continues to have a following. Human duty is to do God's will. Duty, will. That's our duty. And we know God's will both through the revelations of that will in Scripture and also through the power of human reason. Okay, Mr. Paley. Next, we will look at Friedrich Nietzsche's claim that when belief in God disappears, we must become our own source of meaning and value. And on those terms, the goal of life is to achieve greatness. They're great. Oh, was Tony the Tiger a Nietzschean? Great. The third reading is from the great Russian novelist and philosopher Count Leo Tolstoy. Who presents the view that life has absolutely no meaning apart from God. Finally, a contemporary philosopher, Kai Nielsen, argues that one can find a non-religious basis for decent human conduct and a meaningful life. I don't know if I can do all this. That's a lot of reading out loud. So we start with Paley. Paley, obey God's will. Okay, I'm not going to read it all out loud now. This has achieved what I needed, which is focusing on the problem. Paley appeals to something akin, utilitarianism. Things that tend to increase human happiness are consistent with the will of God. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know people that think that. So he wrote the Principles of Moral and Political Philosophy and Natural Theology. Paley's exposition of the design argument in his book Natural Theology was a widely circulated statement of the argument based on design. Okay. God wants us to be happy. So if you follow God's will, you'll be happy. Be happy. God makes you happy. So, happy, happy, joy, joy. Islamic philosopher of the 11th century, Abu Hamid Muhammad al-Ghazali would have been quite comfortable with Paley's view. He said, "The world is a stage or marketplace passed by pilgrims on their way to the next. It is here that they are to provide themselves with provisions for the way, or to put it plainly, man acquires here, by the use of their bodily senses, some knowledge of the works of God, and through them of God himself, the sight of whom will constitute his future beatitude. It is for the acquirement of his knowledge that the spirit of man has descended into this world of water and clay. As long as his senses remain with him, he is said to be in this world. When they depart, only his essential attributes remain. He is said to have gone to the next. What are my essential attributes? The database of Ken. I don't know. Oh dear, nub. He used the word nub. Did not use the word nub. The implication of such a view is that nothing in human experience has any prior claims in human action. Government, education, social policy, all are subordinated to following the will of God, who is to properly instruct the will of God. This, after all, is the nub of the issue. He said nub. You're not going to say the crux of the issue, are you? Hey, normally you would say crux, but you're going to say nub. In Paley's work, The Nub, it is clear that there are two paths you could go on. Two paths that you can go on. And lines on the whistling wind to divine knowledge. Revelation and the conclusions that reason, unaided by revelation, can reach concerning the divine nature. In his book Natural Theology, Paley says, "It is one of the advantages of the revelations that we acknowledge." How's my volume? My volume is probably kind of low. Bah. Okay, it's fine. Bah. -30. Okay. They acknowledge. It is one of the advantages of the revelations which we acknowledge, that they introduce the deity of human apprehension under the idea more personal, more determinate, more within its compass than the theology of nature can do. But it is clear that for Paley, the results of both natural theology and revealed theology are the same. Oh, Paley. Nevertheless, if we be careful to imitate the documents of our religion by confining our explanations to what concerns ourselves and to not affect more precision of our ideas than the subject allows of, the several terms that are employed to denote the attributes of the deity may be made, even in natural religion, to bear a sense consistent with truth and reason, and not surpassing our comprehension. Okay, I kind of get it. Oh dear. Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali talks about our teeth for chewing, hands for grasping. Thus, from his own creation, man comes to know God, the wonders of his bodily frame, power, and wisdom, and from the ample provision, God's love. Okay. So Paley and Al-Ghazali have the same idea. How much will divine law take precedence over secular law? In the West, the tradition of basing political decisions on principles that have autonomy from religion is the guiding approach, though there are always those who urge a return to moral values based on religious convictions. In some Muslim countries, the same debate occurs. Al-Ghazali. How interesting. Oh, do I have to read the original text? I do not. I can't. Mm. I don't know. I certainly like. I don't know. Oh dear. Nietzsche can be read at many levels. Oh dear. Yeah. Well, I can read it quietly like this. I wish I had music playing. I could play music, but I don't want to break copyright, so. Yeah. Nietzsche says we must become God. Yes, Nietzsche says we gotta be great. Oh dear. You're like a ship. Okay. Infinite. Nothing more frightful than infinite. The Madman versus Infinity. Oh, I kind of remember this. Massive morality. Nobility. Great individuals. Yes, he believes in the great men. But then you have not capable of greatness, the cowardly, the timid, the insignificant, and those thinking merely of narrow utility. Slave morality. Which is, he says, is Christianity. Yep. In the horizon of the infinite, we have left the land and gone aboard ship. Oh, well, that's very readable. Oh, the poor bird felt itself free and now strikes against the walls of the cage. Yeah, he's good. He's good at writing. Okay, but I never really felt. It's hard to entertain what I don't agree with. Is Nietzsche correct? I don't know. Oh, sleep analysis is correct because they all emphasize submission. And Tolstoy. Tolstoy liked religion. Oh, puzzling Tolstoy. Yeah, gave his money away. Wrote a couple big novels. Very important. Yeah, he liked emotion. Art and poetry are not satisfying. Science can't explain ultimate meanings. Sensation, Epicureanism is not satisfactory. And destroying your life is the response of strength. He would not accept. Okay. Reason beyond reason. Call of the self to a higher purpose. He exists, said I to myself. I had only for an instant to admit that, and at once life arose within me. I had only to admit, okay, possibility and joy. Okay. There is an Eastern tale told long ago of a traveler overtaken over a plain by an enraged beast. Escaping from the beast, he gets into a dry well, but sees at the bottom of the well a dragon that has opened its jaws to swallow him. And the unfortunate man, not daring to climb out lest he be destroyed by the enraged beast, and not daring to leave at the bottom of the well lest he be eaten by the dragon, seizes a twig growing in a crack of the well and clings to it. His hands are growing weaker, and he feels he will soon have to resign himself to the destruction that awaits for him above or below, but still he clings on. Then he sees that two mice, a black and a white one, go regularly round and round the stem of the twig to which he is clinging and gnaw at it. And as soon as the twig itself will snap and he will fall into the dragon's jaws. The traveler sees this and knows he will inevitably perish. But while still hanging, he looks around, looks at some drops of honey in the leaves of the twig, reaches out with his tongue and licks them. So I too cling to the twig of life, knowing that the dragon of death was inevitably awaiting me, ready to tear me to pieces, and I could not understand why I had fallen into such torment. I tried to lick the honey, which formerly consoled me, but the honey no longer gave me pleasure, and the white and black mice of day and night gnawed at the branch by which I hung. Oh, dang, it's time. Ha ha. I saw the dragon clearly, and the honey was no longer tasting sweet. I only saw the unescapable dragon and the mice, and I could not tear my gaze from them. And this is not a fable, but the real unanswerable truth, intelligible to all. Oh, dang, Tolstoy, that was pretty powerful. The deception of the joys of life, which formerly allayed my terror of the dragon, no longer deceived me, no matter how often I may be told, "You cannot understand the meaning of life, so do not think about it, but live." I can no longer do that. I have already done it for too long. I cannot now help seeing day and night going round and round and bringing me to death. That is all I see, for that alone is truth, all else is false. The two drops of honey which diverted my eyes from the cruel truth longer than the rest, my love of family and of writing, art as I called it, were no longer sweet to me. Family, I said to myself. But my family, wife and children, are also human. They're placed just as I am. They must either live in a lie or see the terrible truth. Why should they live? Why should I love them, guard them, and bring them up, or watch them? That they may come to despair that I feel, or else be stupid? Loving them, I cannot hide the truth from them. Every step in knowledge leads them to the truth, and the truth is the death. Art, poetry. Under the influence of success and the praise of man, I had long assured myself that this was a thing one could do though death was drawing near. Death which destroys all things, including my work and its remembrance. But as soon as I saw that it was too was a fraud, it was plain to me that art is an adornment of life, an allurement of to life. But life had lost its attraction to me, for how could I attract others? As long as I was not living my own life, but was born on the waves of some other life, as long as I believed that life had a meaning, though one I could not express, the reflection of life in poetry and art and all these things afforded me pleasure. It was pleasant to look at life and the survivor in the mirror of art. But when I began to seek the meaning of life and I felt the necessity of living my own life, that mirror became for me unnecessary, superfluous, ridiculous, or painful. I could no longer soothe myself with that I saw in the mirror, namely that my position was stupid and desperate. It was all very well to enjoy the sight, when in the depth of my soul I believed that my life had a meaning. Then the play of lights, comic, tragic, touching, beautiful, and terrible, in life amused me. But when I knew life to be meaningless and terrible, the play in the mirror no longer amused me. No sweetness of honey could be sweet to me when I saw the dragon and saw the mice gnawing away my support. Nor was that all. Had I simply understood that life had no meaning, I could have borne it out quietly. knowing that was not my lot, that was my lot. But I could not satisfy myself with that. Had I been a man living in a wood from which he knows there is no exit, I could have lived, but I was like one lost in a wood, who, horrified at having lost his way, rushes about wishing to find the road. He knows that each step he takes confuses him more and more, but he cannot help rushing about. It was indeed terrible, and to rid myself of the terror I wished to kill myself. I experienced terror at what awaited me, knew that the terror was even worse than the position I was in, but still I could not patiently await the end. However convincing the argument might be, in any case that some vessel in my heart would give way, or something would burst and all would be over. I could not patiently await that end. The horror of my darkness was too great, and I wished to free myself from it as quickly as possible, by hook or by noose or by bullet. That the feeling drove me most strongly toward suicide. Not finding an answer in science, I began to seek for it in life, hoping to find it among the people around me. And I began to observe how the people around me, people like myself, lived, and what their attitude was to this question, which brought me to despair. And this is what I found among people who were in the same position as myself as regards education and manner of life. I found that for people in my circle, there were four ways out of the terrible position that we were all placed. The first way of that was ignorance. It consists of not knowing, not understanding that life is an evil and an absurdity. People of this sort, chiefly women or very young or very dull people, have not yet understood that the question of life, which presented itself to Schopenhauer, Solomon, and Buddha. They see neither the dragon that awaits them, nor the mice knowing at the shrub they are hanging, and they lick the drops of honey. But they lick the drops of honey only for a while. Something will turn their attention to the dragon and the mice, and there will be an end to their licking. For them I have nothing to learn. One cannot cease to know what one does know. The second way out is Epicureanism. It consists, while knowing the hopelessness of life, in making use meanwhile of the advantages one has, disregarding the dragon and the mice. See, this is what I do. And licking the honey in the best way, especially if there is a lot of it within reach. Solomon expresses this way out thus: Then I commanded mirth, because a man hath no better thing under the sun, to eat, to drink, and to be merry, and that this should accompany him in his labor until all the days of his life, which God granteth him under the sun. Therefore eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart. Live joyfully with the wife for whom lovest all the days of the life of the vanity, for this is the portion in life and in the labors which thou hast taken under the sun. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there is no work, no device, no knowledge, no wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. I can't read any more of this. Okay, that was the second escape. Was a third escape, strength and energy, stirring life. I don't get that part. Cause, I said to myself, is not a category of thought such as our time and space. If I exist, there must be a cause and a cause of causes. And the first cause, God. Okay. Thus I was saved from suicide. Oh my God. How are we doing? Offering an alternative to Paley and Tolstoy, Nielsen suggests, it's Kai Nielsen. I'm gonna bring a water out here. Is my thing recording? It is. I need a water. I'll be right back. Okay. Let me get through all this. So we're moving on from Tolstoy to Kai Nielsen. Now, Kai Nielsen, I guess he's presented as the reasonable one. Even without a religion-based view of life, we need not sink into nihilism or skepticism. Let's see, if the believer, Kai Nielsen says, if the believer loses his God but can keep his nerve, think the matter over, and thoroughly take it to heart, life can still be meaningful, yet have an objective rationale. The morality we were left with will not be so different from the traditional standards of conduct. Secular. Secular is the world. Yeah. So Kai Nielsen has happiness as the goal. Okay. Ethical principles. Aristotle and Kant, happiness is good. Treat every person as an end, and I like that. Treat every person as an end and never a means only. Yeah. Oh, what is that? Religion-based morality also appeals to the claim that persons are created in the image of God and are therefore deserve respect because they are of infinite value. Hmm, that's interesting. Kind of like that idea. Silly, but egoism. Philosophers talk about psychological egoism, which is self-interest, and ethical egoism. It's rational for people to act out of self-interest. Honestly, eh. Psychological egoism is false. People do not always act in their best interest. So, ethical egoism, and psychological egoism is uh, flawed. Okay. Oh dear. Hmm. We also want security and emotional peace. We want a life which will not be consistently threatened with harassment. Further, we need creative input. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. See, it's respect for person. Okay. Did I make it through the bottom? I did. I skipped a lot. No. Okay, that was it. I made it through. And how long? 50 minutes. Skipping over a lot.